New research suggests that 1 in 10 NHS staff has experienced sexual harassment at work. The poll, which was carried out by the union UNISON, found that half of the reports weren't actually passed on to bosses because healthcare workers weren't confident that they would receive a supportive response. But joining me now is UNISON's General Secretary, Christina McInerney. Those two facts are both shocking, aren't they? The level of harassment and also the reluctance of people to report it.
We were really taken aback by them. Although I think actually the percentage of people who have reported it is probably quite seriously underreported. I think far more people have probably experienced this, certainly from experience I've had going around talking to staff who work in the NHS who belong to UNISON. And it's that kind of thing that they're made to feel it's part of the job and just, get over it, take it for granted. You should just accept it as part of the job. And actually, I think particularly now, people should no longer have to put up with that kind of behaviour. And it's time the NHS and employers did something about it.
So what exactly are we talking about? What sort of categories of harassment are coming up in this report?
So the majority are, sort of crude remarks being made to people, suggestive comments being made to staff as they're working. But it ranges from that right up to, serious, people being touched, unwanted touching and harassment, people actually being assaulted and receiving of violent assaults of a sexual nature. And things like 999 call handlers receiving calls of a sexual nature, particularly during the night when people are phoning them, all of which I think has meant that people feel they don't need to report these things. It's just one of these things. But what we're saying now to the NHS as an employer is you have to take this seriously. It's unacceptable that staff are having to put up with this, and things need to be put in place, procedures put in place, and the most serious ones and the repeat offenders should be investigated and action taken against them.
So is this a sort of twin track of cultural problems within management, within processes, but also about, frankly, the way that patients are allowed to do these things without being checked?
There is an element of that, and this is, interestingly, this is about patients abusing staff. It's about their families and members of the public. And sadly, it's also about colleagues abusing other colleagues in the NHS. So there are a range of things that need to be dealt with by employers and probably dealt with in different ways. You maybe treat it differently, have put different processes in place to deal with a colleague abusing another colleague, and probably slightly more difficult where you're talking about a patient or a member of the public or a patient's family. But that doesn't mean you can't tackle it. And I think what needs to happen is they have to first of all identify it as a problem. And that's one of the issues, is they're not identifying it as a problem because it's being swept under the carpet predominantly by managers and by other staff who say, this is just part of the course. If you're a nurse, if you're a 999 call handler, if you're an ambulance worker, this is what happens. People will make these comments to you, or people will behave in a certain way. It's just somebody being drunk and misbehaving. But it's not acceptable and it has to be dealt with.
I think everyone would agree that it's unacceptable behaviour, but what do you think should happen next? How do you address this?
So we would like the NHS employers to actually do a survey themselves to find out the extent of the problem, and to work with us as the main trade union in health. UNISON is the biggest union in the NHS, about what procedures and processes we can put in place. And that will include training managers on how to deal with it. It will include giving staff information about what they should do when they experience this, how they should report it, how it should be recorded. And also we would want to work with them about saying, how would you follow through in some of these things? So some of it might be about making sure the public are aware, patients are aware that this behaviour is not acceptable and something will be done about it. So as I say, actually looking at those who are perhaps the most serious issues, serious offences, persistent offenders, because that's the other thing that came through, is that sometimes these people are known to the NHS because they're repeat callers on 999, or patients who come in, or patients who behave in this way in a regular fashion, and that should not be tolerated. And it's getting that message across to change behaviours of the people who use the NHS and those who work in the NHS.
Christina McInerney, thank you so much for joining us. What a fascinating report. Appreciate your time this afternoon.
Thank you.